Welcome to our podcast.
My name's Nora.
My name's Grace.
My name's Isabel.
My name is Jacob.
And today we're going to be talking to you about food insecurity and housing affordability on the KU campus. So I'm going to start. Personally, I live in the on-campus scholarship hall, Watkins. I actually live with Grace. And finding housing for me was a little bit difficult on campus, just with the price ranges of on-campus housing for freshmen that were available varied so greatly. And so luckily I was able to get into the scholarship hall housing, and that's made college affordability a lot more easy for me. But it is exclusive and there aren't that many spots, so that's definitely a big issue that people who need less expensive housing don't really have a wide variety to get that. One of my first source here is the KU Housing Affordability website, and I put together a little graph of the Watkins all-inclusive yearly rates from 2021 to the projected 2025 rates. And as you can see, it very steadily is increasing over the years. So we're right here, and that's what I paid this year. But definitely moving forward, KU students are going to have issues with just affording school at all, and then also accessing on-campus housing. We're in a boom where the incoming freshman classes are just gigantic, and I know that personally in the Scholl Hall they told us that if we didn't secure our spot back in January that we wouldn't have one. So that's becoming a much more prevalent issue of even if you want to live on campus, you can't. Another one of my sources, the second one talked about food and housing insecurity after and during COVID and how that impacts different groups of students. The results concluded that while everybody had a harder time accessing those things during COVID, that specific groups students of color, international students, and first-generation college students are impacted more than other intersections of students. And so we really have to consider positionality when we're trying to help students access these things in different groups, because it's not equal. And then lastly, my third article takes into consideration meeting the needs for large incoming classes. And so KU has just recently bought another apartment building. I think it's the Hawker.
I think so.
But it's crazy expensive. It's $12,000. I think I don't know if it's semester or per year, but it's very, very expensive. And so even for students where there's a new housing option, it's not accessible for most students. I don't know if that was just a me thing, but Grace, I know you also live, I know you live with me, but it's...
The same thing happened to me. I had to look for scholarship hall housing, but I was not planning to be at Watkins, and so I didn't know about you don't have a meal plan.
we cook entirely for ourselves.
Yeah, you have to buy your own groceries and stuff like that. And one thing that was kind of sucked was I wasn't prepared for that. So throughout the first semester, I was just taking chunks out of my savings account to get groceries. And then I eventually had to start asking my parents hey, I need food. Can you please send me money? And that was a really difficult adjustment. I don't know if you've experienced that too, but if you don't have a job or a giant savings account that's endless, it's whoa.
Do you guys personally have dining money, because you can add to it without having a dining plan? You can add money to it, so you just don't have any at all.
I only ever use my KU ID to get into buildings, but we just pay for housing. We don't pay I have nothing associated with KU. My Grubhub is useless to me because
literally
it's
same.
not, I don't get dining dollars.
Right.
So it's while it's cheaper to live in a scholarship hall, you get there's you don't have that buffer of like the KU dining dollars. Like it's just like real money that you're spending on food.
Right.
Are you not allowed to, or are you just?
No, you
personally
can.
You
allowed?
can buy a meal plan. It's just,
It's just
like
all about being less expensive.
Yeah.
Because like a meal plan is like
Oh my gosh,
500.
it has a
it's
potential
insane.
to be like
Yeah.
more costly
Yeah.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was talking to one of my friends. She's an international student, and I know you were talking about how like they're greatly affected by this. But when she first moved here, she was like really shocked at the price of food, and like she wasn't prepared for that. And like she had to worry about if she was going to be able to get food every week. Like it was like really crazy. But she eventually also had to like ask out to her family for help and with groceries, and it's just like food shouldn't be that expensive. Like there is food insecurity, and it's like real, you know. But so can you go to my graph?
For sure.
So this is from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and it's literally just showing you in each state, like if it's bad and if the food insecurity is really bad there or below average. And Kansas is in the middle, so not the worst, not the best, but it just goes to show that it like really is a problem here. But yeah, okay, can you go back to the other one?
For sure.
So the second source there is talking about how after the recent pandemic, food programs have been shutting down and the price of living is going up, obviously, so it's been really hard for a lot of people. And I don't have the graph that I'm about to talk about up there, but it shows like how like different races go through more food insecurity than others, and like it's like just really hard depending on where you're living too. But yeah, the next one I have up there is no, it's fine.
No, yep, same.
It talks about a personal story of this girl who she had been divorced and she had 2 kids, and she wanted to go back to school, and she ended up having to go back to live with her parents, and it just ended up being so expensive. She like started relying on her parents for food, and because like she can't afford it, and it's just like she was a nurse too, like she had a real job and still like couldn't afford things, so it's just like a real problem.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think that like this young in life we're having to deal with all of these
Right.
issues. Like I'm still a dependent of my parents on
Right.
taxes, and I'm already like, oh, real world issues.
Yeah, literally.
I'm literally stressing about like, will I ever be able to afford a house? Will
Yeah.
I be able to do
I think about that
this?
so
I
I
often.
know.
think about it so often, and I'm like,
We're freshmen.
oh my gosh, because it's just like we have such a little
Yeah.
opportunity to get a house or all that
Any of
stuff.
that.
Mm.
So the two of you guys live in dorms, right? Which
Yeah.
ones do you live in?
I live in South Hall.
South.
I live in Lewis,
So
which
those are
yeah,
on Daisy Hill.
yes,
proper.
we
Yeah.
live in.
Nice.
Sofa's right across from Lewis.
Oh yeah. And you have the diner. The
Um,
Mrs. E's?
Mrs.
Or
E's
yeah,
is
Mrs.
connected to
E's.
Lewis.
Oh okay.
Yeah.
What I find interesting about Mrs. E's is that I thought like you would be able to get to it, because since it is connected to the physical building of Lewis, I was like, oh, I can just get to it through Lewis.
Inside.
No,
No,
you
you
have
have
to
to
go
go outside.
outside of
Yeah.
Lewis
Oh, what the
and
heck?
enter Mrs. E's, and I'm like, oh my, like it's fine, but it's just such an unnecessary like little walk. And just, like,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
But speaking of Lewis, so I'm talking about housing affordability in KU dorms. My roommate and I live in a 2-person suite with a bathroom in Lewis, and when we signed up for housing, we were put into a 4-person suite with a bathroom in Lewis, but we were really lucky because we put in our wait list and we got our wait list even through the whole like shortage. We were able to get what we wanted, and like that was just like what luck.
Yeah.
Because we really did not want a 4-person. But as you can see, in 2022 and 2023, that school year, the overall price was $6,798 for the 2-person room with a bath. But then this year, it went up to $7,104 for the whole
That's
year.
crazy.
That's $300.
Yeah.
That's more of an increase than
Than
for
ours,
us.
yeah.
And I'm sure that it will be much more money next year
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
It's gonna go
Well,
up.
not next year because it won't even be open next year.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
So, and with the renovations, when the renovations get done, I bet it will be
So
much,
expensive.
much more expensive with
Like
the
with
renovations.
Stouffer and like the one on
Like-
install, like those ones are like so
So nice.
so expensive.
Yeah.
And it's just such a chunk out of all of the dorms because there's lots of dorms, and I know that there's like 2-person suites in Templin, but I think Lewis has more, but I
Yeah.
could be wrong. And so it's just a lot of housing is gonna be gone. And this year, quote from, can you read my sources?
Yeah.
A quote from the second one, more. Many of this year's incoming freshmen have first-hand experience with student housing shortage. This year, there were 50 student housing groups, and many of those students in the higher numbered groups were still looking for housing for the school year, with less than 3 days until the start of classes in August.
Yeah.
That's so stressful.
Yes.
I had a friend who he didn't have housing until like the week before school. Like, and then he just got stuck in a skull hall. Like,
Oh, a lot of people. One
Yeah.
of my roommates, like she came in at semester and she's only in the skull hall because that's literally all they
the
have.
only place left. Yeah.
Someone I know had to like move into an apartment off campus at the beginning of the year too, and especially as a freshman, like you're already stressed about going into a new environment, not living with your parents, living by yourself, having all this, being able to be independent, and now you have to be off campus and you're stressed about like, how am I gonna get to campus? How am I gonna be able to afford all this stuff as an 18-year-old pretty much? And it's
Yeah,
it's just I
stressful.
can't even imagine
Yeah.
And it's-
because of that.
It's honestly not even like a freshman issue, like we were talking about,
Yeah.
especially with the closing of like next year. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, we're having issues with incoming freshmen.
It affects every
exit,
grade.
but, like, Even I'm sure the amount of like upperclassmen and off campus like housing has increased just because like there's not room for them on campus.
Right,
Like we're
yeah.
just pushing them out.
Because the majority of off-campus living is a 12-month lease,
yeah.
which, like, if you're not prepared, like, to be at an apartment full-time, like, in the summer,
Yeah.
like, that's not a good option, because I'm living off-campus next year, and I was not planning on living off-campus next year. I was planning to get, like, Jayhawk Towers with my roommate, 2-person, but all that was left was a 4-person, and neither of us were like, no, we don't want that. That's not what we want. So we ended up getting an off-campus apartment, and luckily, the one we found, oh my gosh, it's amazing. I have a 10-month lease,
That's
which
good.
is like,
So you get the
that's
summer.
amazing.
Yeah.
And apparently they take financial aid if you need it, which is like,
That's really good.
for off-campus housing, that's
Super duper.
amazing. Because my roommate for next year also, he will be a junior next year, like, if we weren't able to find that, she wouldn't have been able to continue going to college here, which,
That would suck.
because all the other housing that was available once we got our like room selection was like the Hawker, which is, as you said, like
Very expensive.
very expensive, or just whatever, like we didn't want. And if we were paying a lot of money, we want to get something that we want. So it's just very stressful in that regard.
Yeah. Let's hear about food insecurity in the dorms.
We go.
Alright, so my first source, I had the actual like dining plans on the KU website. And so like if you live in the dorms in KU, like not the scholarship ones, but like normal ones, you have to like buy the meal plan. It's like they like force it to. And it's pretty expensive too. Because you can either get the Mrs. E's and South Dining Commons, which like you can go to that dining hall, like, it's like unlimited amount of times. So it's not like you have a
That's
certain amount of money. So
Yeah.
it's not bad, but it's only like 2 dining halls. And sometimes, like, you're not even at one of them. And you only go to one of them all the time. So it like gets kind of like repetitive eating at the same place every day. And it costs like $4,600 annually.
What?
That is more than I pay for housing in a year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty expensive.
Oh my god.
Yeah, my dining was like maybe 2,000 a semester for sure. But it wasn't the Mrs. East plan, it was the blue plan, which you could do for all of the.
Oh my god, that's
Options.
crazy. I think
Yeah.
I don't. I mean,
Well,
like, I don't
complain
know what I
anymore.
paid in groceries, but like,
Yeah.
holy crap!
That's insane.
It's pretty expensive. And blue and there's also blue and crimson one.
Yeah.
And they're both very expensive too.
Like compared to like similar price range.
Yeah, the blue ones is the cheapest one's like $4,200.
Oh.
$4,200.
Yeah, that's the one.
Cheap. That's crazy.
That's insane.
And then the crimson one's like $4,500.
Wow.
Wow. I hope it
And
comes
on top
with,
of
like,
that,
a
if
free
you have
car
leftover
wash.
money, they keep the money.
They keep the money. You
We
have
don't
to
get
use
the
it all.
money back.
Yeah, that's like the worst part.
That's
So-
ridiculous.
That's how they get you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow.
And it's like there's not even really much of a point of having a meal plan because it's like a 1-to-1 ratio of like money. They're just like taking your money.
In advance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't actually benefit us. I like, however, I do appreciate the transparency of like that they put all of this information up for
Yeah.
us to
Yeah.
find.
Yes.
But yeah, so that can be definitely cause food insecurity
Oh.
for kids if like yeah, that's so expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That's insane.
And then for my second source, I had actually got it from kind of a student like article.
Mm-hmm.
So it's called like the University Daily Kansan, and they actually have like students like talk about problems. And one of the things I saw is that so they were talking about a lot of places they're like really overpriced because like down their ground in Westco, they're talking about like how like sandwiches are like at least $10 and they don't even come with any sides or anything,
Mhm.
That's crazy.
and then you have to buy dipping sauce, and then there's also a thing that says that it also costs money to like request less ice in your drink, which is like,
What?
Yes. Yeah.
What?
I think that would be like more
Oh.
ice, okay, whatever. 40 cents, okay, sure. But for less ice,
That's
because it takes time, I guess.
That's
but
feeling a lot better about my living
you're
situation.
paying for their time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
it's crazy.
I do have to say I think there's a petition going around about like the how they keep the money. I think there's a petition going around like for that to change.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
Will they do anything about it? Who
Who
knows?
knows?
But there is something.
I guess that was my third source.
No,
that's
all
good.
good. It's the
Okay.
second one you talked about.
So- That was my second source. So it's about an article about the average cost of food per month as a college student. It was basically like kind of a study, and it says a campus meal plan like averages $450 a month, and that is a lot cheaper than the KU one.
Yeah.
Because I would say $400. Sadly, is probably around groceries for a month. Like not even know it's more.
Absolutely not. I pay
No.
like $60 every 2 weeks for groceries.
Yeah, I'd say I'm like
Well, I guess it
I'm probably
depends
about
because
30 to 40 a week.
I just know that a lot of places it's like you don't get a lot for like $100.
Shop
That's
at
true.
Aldi.
It
Yeah,
just
Aldi,
really depends
Walmart,
on
That's where I get all my food.
I just know that-
rewards.
Yeah.
food's much more expensive now.
Yes, completely.
And so
For sure.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's really cool. So I think overall we can see that this is not just a freshman issue. That like a lot of different people from different positionalities are being affected by the affordability and access to food and housing on campus.
Definitely.
Married with the fact that we're having issues with like they're closing Lewis for renovations, and that like while they did buy the Hawker, no one can afford
No
that.
one can afford that.
So hopefully we'll see some positive changes in the next few years that will make this easier to go to KU.
Yeah.
So thank you for watching.